Grab your big book, your pen, your highlighter, and notepad and get ready to hear and apply some of the solution from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous through the experience, strength, and hope of Nikki M. To have a question addressed in a future episode of Noodle It Out with Nikki, please send an email to noodlewithnikki@gmail.com, and Nikki is spelled with 2 Ks. To get a more interactive experience with Nikki as she noodles out life and recovery questions using the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you can get a link to her weekly Noodle It Out with Nikki meeting held live on Zoom every Monday morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The information to that meeting is in the show notes of this podcast. God morning, God afternoon, and God evening to all. My name is Justin B, and I'm a son of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a qualifying addict of multiple fellowships living in the miracle of recovery, and I'm here with the intelligent agent, spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation, and my co-host, Nikki M. Nikki, come off mute and say hi and tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki M, and Justin described me correctly. I'm a spearhead. And what does that mean? Well, I work for God. That's what it means. I'm a servant of God. And what's going on right now is that, to be honest, I didn't get enough sleep last night, or I should say proper sleep. And I just want to tell all our Noodle listeners, our Rico 12 family, sleep is vital. We don't talk about that enough. We hear the slogan HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And if you're in any of those modes, it's not going to be an extraordinary, fantastic day, because I really need great sleep. It's vital. Good food, vital. My head in the clouds with God and my feet working on the base here with you, fellow travelers. This is not an easy program, but I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Nikki. And yeah, when I'm tired, it messes things up in my life too. I've got to be super, super aware of being connected with God in those situations. And I think that might be helpful today as we go into our topic. But before we get into our question for today, I just want to introduce people. If you're new to Noodle with Nikki, what we do here is we take a question from people who are out there in our communities, people we sponsor, people who have a question for us, and bring it to the Big Book. And Nikki dives deep into the Big Book to find answers to these questions. Some of them are directly related to recovery. Some of them are related to life, because, well, we've learned that the Big Book is how does it say it, Nikki? A plan for living, a guideline for living. What is it that it says?
Design for living, page 28.
A design for living. And that's a great way to look at things. So come in and dive into this as we go into the questions. And if by chance you're out there and you're like, man, I love what Rico 12 is doing with this Noodle podcast, what the Big Book Roundtable podcast, what the Speaker Meeting podcast is doing, and you feel prompted to make a contributions, please consider doing so. You can do that at rico12.com/support. All of those links are also in the show notes of the podcast. You can jump in and do that. We're so grateful to those who have contributed, past, present, and future. So thank you for that support. All right, so let's jump into today's question, Nikki. This one is one that I think it's a long question, but I think there's something to it. So I'm just going to read this as I've got it out here, and then we'll dive into it. This question says, for most people, myself included, I have seen a good step 2 experience as a huge problem, meaning to say, their belief in a God of their understanding is a huge problem. And as a consequence, their remaining step work is a lot more academic rather than experiential. When this is the case, when it's more academic than experiential, it seems that more conduct-related issues, sex, rage, food, character defects, seem to come up more regularly. But those who have a more experiential step 2 experience seem to move more easily through the conduct-related issues that come up. Can you in the Big Book throw some light on why this happens and what can be done to improve this situation? So, Nikki, boiled down, step 2, is it an academic checkbox experience, or is it an experiential, life-changing, shifting experience to come to believe in that a power greater than self can restore us to sanity?
Wow, someone wants me to use my noodle brain, because it says on page 83 of our Big Book that God gave us brains, so use them. And of course, today when I'm a little sleep deprived, I'm going to get in here and let's see how it is. Well, let's talk about this. See, on page XXVII, see, XXVII, it says that unless this person, that's me, unless these people who need this step to experience is coming to believe that a power can restore them to sanity, unless we have this experience, right? It says, unless this person can experience what? An entire psychic. What's a psychic? It's a mind. It's a soul change, not just an academic check the box change. This is a soul and mind change. There is, and here it is, everybody, very little hope of their recovery. Why? Because self-knowledge fails us. Now, I know it's in the book. I gotta, I'm moving slow here, Justin, but I know there's a line. I don't know if it's page 57. It just says something like, self-knowledge fails us, or whatever it says in here. And I'm going to look, but there's so many places I want to go in here because I don't even know if I'm trying to look, but I don't want to spend too much time scrolling through the book. But it says over and over again, basically, all our human resources, as marshaled by the will, by our knowledge, it will completely fail us. Okay. It's not going to work. And so you asked here, like this person who wrote in, and you did put the thing in the chat. So let me look one more time. It's like, for most people, yeah, we've had a good step to experience is a huge problem. Why? Because they want it the minute they've learned how to teach these steps. I've been here 12 years and I'm just waking up to this experience, this psychic, and you and I know, Justin, this belief change. I didn't have a good step to experience the first 4 years. I didn't even have an experience in the rooms. Now go deeper. I started sponsoring the Big Book way. I was in the room for 4 years. I started sponsoring through the Big Book. I'm just now waking up, and I've been sponsoring nonstop through the Big Book sponsorship workbook guide 8 years straight. And I'm just waking up. So again, back to the question I want to see here. It says, like I've seen people who have, meaning their belief of God and understanding is a huge problem. Why? Because it says very clearly on page 84, this is not an overnight matter. It should, what? It is it. This spiritual experience, the spiritual awakening, the seeking God, this lifestyle, this design for living that we just talked about on page 28, this should continue for our lifetime. See, people come in here, Justin, and they think it's just enough, right? And let me see where it is. It's on page 82 because I want to read it.
And while you're looking at that, I found where self-reliance failed us. It's on page 68. There
it is. 68, self-reliance. And that includes your knowledge. That includes, your PhD from Harvard, your medical degree. I sponsor so many therapists and psychologists and mind people, doctors with their PhD. It's like, I got a PhD too. It's called From the School of Hard Knocks. Let's get in here though. It says, we feel, page 82, we feel a person, a man, a woman is unthinking when he, she say that sobriety is enough. See, this is a lifestyle. Sobriety is not enough. A spiritual awakening every day. So that's why a lot of people, they go, I worked my step 2, and they're still, because as this person described it, this person's still in the disease of alcoholism. They just stopped drinking because it says more conduct related issues. No, this is your alcoholism. This is your sex, your rage, your money, your food, your anger, your obsession of the mind seems to come up more regularly. Why? Because you're not blotting out your consciousness with alcohol, drugs, porn. So other things pop up. That's why it very clearly on page 42 says, quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. And so you're not applying your spiritual principles in all areas. So can you and the Big Book throw some light on why this happens? What happens when What did you say, Justin? Like when it says when this is the case, what's the case again, Justin? So we can
When
help
my
our
step 2 is more of a checkbox, it's more of an academic, yeah, I believe that, rather than an experience of, yes, I can see that this power greater than myself can restore me to spiritual, to sanity.
Okay, and so then that was further down on the questions like, can you in the big books, why does this happen? Again, it says, I think it's page 84, 85. It says, the spiritual life is not a theory. See, a lot of this is theorizing. Everyone's like, I checked the box. This theory works. This theory works. Hey, the theory about the round earth. Now, when you prove it to me, no one's proven it to me. Well, Nikki, there's a picture. Yeah, I've seen a lot of pictures. I've also seen them age Michael Jackson, that he's still alive, and Elvis and everybody else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, prove it to me with my eyes. And it's hard to prove. So when it says here, like, can you shed some light on why this happens? Because you have to stay here a while. You must. Let's go to the spiritual experience, 567. Because he's talking about the checkbox kind. We're not talking about the white light moment. We're in the appendix on page 567. Because it says right here, most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety. And that's what this person is talking about, the educational variety. I've learned this. I've been taught this. My mom, some experience, strength, and hope the other day, the doctor, young guy, came in. My mom has COPD and blah, blah, blah. We were in the emergency in the hospital for a few days. And I said to Dr. Peter, he said, he was like, this medication. I said, Dr. Peter, you haven't even asked my mother what she eats. You haven't even talked to her about her diet. Educational variety. See, Dr. Peter's going in there and he's been taught by the medical school that he's come from, check off the box, check. But there's more to that. What's my mom eating? How about she's not eating? That's why she's in here. You understand? Like she's only smoking. Let's go deep. The disease of alcoholism. You see what I mean, Justin? It's like the checkbox. So our doctors are programmed that way. Our teachers, we have standardized testing here in Canada. I don't know if you have it in America, standard, where like Justin and I are in the same classroom. And if we don't check those boxes, well, then all of a sudden, Nikki didn't check that box. Nikki doesn't learn like that. Nikki's more of an artist. Justin's more of a math and science guy. I'm more of but now Nikki's labeled because she didn't check the box. You understand where this goes? I'm not spiritually fit because I didn't check the box. This is an experience that you have to experience. That makes sense. Like you talk to me about yours, because Justin, let's go deep, everybody. You don't know, maybe you don't know my friend Justin. He comes from a very deep, I don't know if it's a religious background, you can talk about it, but you had to check the boxes.
Yeah. So my step 2, it was really hard for me to do step 1 and admit powerlessness and unmanageability, because I'm a red-blooded American man. I can do whatever I can do, but step 2, when it came to that, I came to believe that a power greater than myself, the power of God, could restore me to sanity. I was like, well, of course, because I grew up in a very religious setting where God was the center of everything we talked about. Now, what I had to learn after about 5 years of checking that box, well, of course, God is able to do that for me. I realized that my understanding of God was such that God didn't like me enough to help me when I was in trouble. He would always say, just do it yourself, and I couldn't do it myself. And that was my understanding of God. And then I had the experiential step 2, 5 years into sobriety, where I was introduced to the concept of firing God and hiring a God that could actually and would actually do these things for me that I couldn't do for myself. And initially I thought, well, I'm going to go to hell for that, And then as I went through it, I went, wait, no, I'm not going to go to hell for that, because my understanding of God is completely incomplete and completely skewed. I'm looking through, a shattered window, shattered mirror experience where I'm just catching glimpses of whatever, and it's not complete. But when I had that experience of really going, okay, God, I don't know who you are. Kind of the set aside prayer. Help me set aside everything I think I know about you, God, so that I can have a new understanding and see your truth. And as that happens, line upon line, just a little bit here and there, we grow. God continually discloses more to you and to us. That new God of my understanding, one day at a time, is able to do that, and it becomes an experiential step 2 rather than a checkbox step 2. Does that make sense? And what are your thoughts on that, Nikki?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And my thoughts as you were talking, because everybody, if you stay here long enough, you'll listen. It's like someone who speaks another language. Okay. Like say my boyfriend, he speaks Luxembourgish. Okay. So he'll hear English, but he translated it back into the 7 languages in his head that he speaks way better than English. So I'll hear you speak and I can translate that back into Big Book. And what I heard is page 55. I heard you say this, and see back to the question, everybody, at the top of this podcast was why the step 2 experience is more academic, checkbox. And I was doing that. I was following it. It was very academic. I want to say even more robotic than spiritual, if that makes sense. More human than actual spirit. Okay. More human, I've come to believe, than spirit. Now I'm going to say why. And then the person who asked is like, why is this happening? Well, number one, as I was listening to Justin, they really don't believe the book. That's number one. It wasn't until I believed this blue book with this white pages and this black ink over, let's go deep, Justin, over even what the Bible says, over what my society says, over what my government says. Like, this is real radical. Why? We're on page 55. It says, and I heard Justin just say this, he says, once I really swept away my prejudice. See, it's a paragraph, it's second from the bottom. It says, that's like my sponsor. That's the big book people. That's the big book itself. That's the first 100. They can only clear the ground a little bit. They can only sweep away a little bit of this. But if their testimony, number one, I have to sweep away all my prejudice every day. And that's when your real experience happened. And that's for me every day. It's like, I have to sweep away all prejudice. Is what I have been taught the truth? Is what the programming of my government, my parents, my society, I have to sweep all of that away, Justin. Like, that's what I just heard you say. You're like, Nikki, when I really got in here and swept away everything and got into this new concept that I am the CEO of my life and I'm destroying it, I have to fire Justin and hire God. What does that mean? I have to hire humility. I don't know anything. I have to hire being responsible. Being responsible means I cannot open the fridge. I can't go to that thing. I can't look at that. I can't even think that way about those people. Makes sense. Like, this is radical. So every day that because the question was, again, let me just look, because I know you put in the chat and I love that part where you put, can I shed some light on why the step 2 experience isn't happening more of a real way of life rather than I've checked the boxes and everything's done? Because number one, this person isn't sweeping away the prejudice. This person isn't thinking honestly. When I thought honestly, Justin, this goes radical. When I thought honestly about everything I've ever been taught, is that true? Is that true? Is that true about the God they gave me? See, the God they told me can be a punishing God. I came from one of those gods. Like, if you do that, Nikki, you're not going to go to heaven. You do that. Heaven's on earth. What the hell are you talking about? I'm here. Heaven's in my mind. But I was taught that when I die, like, see, this is real sweeping away, thinking honestly is what because I love what our friend David G says, Justin. He says thus, and if you're here listening to Noodle Podcast, please get onto our other podcast, which is the Roundtable, where we go line by line. But I was taught about a God by sick people. I was taught a God by a sick society. You understand? So I've got to sweep away my prejudice. I got to think honestly. And here it is. And this is why this person has not really had that deep spiritual come to experience every day, because you got to have it every day. This belief system has to change. Why? Because they're not really searching diligently within themselves. They're searching diligently within the books, in their career, in those, what are those numbers and letters that come after a doctor where it says PhD, BA, BA?
Their credentials, yeah.
Oh, thank you, smarty pants. Their credentials, all the credentials. What is the credential that comes after mine? It says Nikki M, servant of God. That's my credentials. Like, it's really radical. So see these people who are step 2 and they've been here 10 years and they're still checking off the boxes and they're not literally here. It's here. Page 1. And we said it on Noodle, and I don't know why I keep going here. I love when God does that. You keep going to the same passage all week, or it's like, I just talked about that. But here it is. It's on page 130. See, those of us wanting the step 2 experience, we have spent much time in the world of not just spiritual make-believe fantasy, in the world of, if I have all those credentials, it will be okay. Like, oh, you can change the book a little bit to read that up. Like, those of us who have spent much time in the world that who I am in society tells me that if I am not that person with those credentials, I'm nothing. You see, that's still old belief system, old ideals. See, that dream world, that fake reality world, that world where I'm nobody unless I am the CEO of a company. Well, what do you do, Nikki? Oh, I'm just a window washer. No, you're not I'm just a mom. I mean, when I hear moms say that, like, you are the world leaders, mothers. I mean, don't make me cry about that one. Like, what, I'm just a mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, yeah, that's you are the most important person in the world. Oh, I'm not the doctor. I'm just the nurse. I'm just the PSW. The PSW is the one who changed Auntie's diapers in her senior home at 95 years old. It's not the doctor. Like, everyone plays a role, Justin. You understand? So this old programming, sweeping this away, this your educational variety. No. This is so, where it is, magical. See, it's right here. It's like God would like us to keep our heads in the cloud, not in the books, not on a checklist. Does that make sense? Not on a checklist of who, what, blah, blah, blah. And how do you have the real step 2 spiritual experience, Justin? And you know this because you've done it many times. You sponsor. And you light up when you watch someone who's dying come alive. You watch a miracle. You've watched children being born. You're a grandfather. We just had that new grandbaby. That's a miracle. But you tell me talk about that spiritual experience when you are watching a man who's dying, who can't stop. He's losing his family. He's going to lose his job because he's got caught watching porn at university that's inappropriate on the work computer. You understand?
Yes, I do.
What happens, Justin?
When that person is open to seeing things in a different light, to seeing God differently than they ever perceived God before, and they go, wow, they put God on trial basically and say, hey, I'm going to go and do these things that this book is saying, that my sponsor is saying to do, and I'm going to start seeing results, and the light comes on and the hope happens. And I think that's the vital part of step 2 is hope. There is hope that I can actually function in this world in a productive way and not just continually flush it down the toilet. And when I see that light come on in their eyes, there's no greater joy in my life than that. When the light's on in my eyes, I'm excited. I'm energetic. I'm not getting worn out doing this work. But when I see the light come on in other people's eyes, that's when I'm at a sporting event and just spontaneously jump up and cheer and just, and that is the coolest experience ever. Any thoughts on that, Nikki?
Just how lucky your wife is to have you. You're a real man of God. You like cool things like nature, and you're one of the red-blooded dudes out there cheering for not just sports, but for people. You're, for people, for the human race, wanting nothing in return. I watch you. So I'm just filled with gratitude right now. So person who wrote in and is wondering about the step 2 experience, why they're watching so many people not really in the spirit world, just checkboxing it, robotic, still part of the matrix, not really having their heads in the cloud and their feet on the ground with God and their fellow travelers. What's happened and why? And we shed some light on it. What's happening is they're not sponsoring. What happens is they're not staying here long enough. What happens is they're not sweeping away their prejudice every day. They're not thinking honestly. And they're really not searching diligently within themselves. They're still searching diligently within their old belief system, within their old ideals, their old concepts and conceptions. This is real radical stuff. We're reborn. So stay. And, Justin, maybe you could end us with that prayer that we started with, you and I, before you hit record. I think maybe we can get that on tape, this prayer, because that might help everybody every day sweep away your prejudice so you can have a new experience with this power and really enter into a spirit world. This is radical. This is not anything human. This is beyond a checkbox. This is beyond your medical system. This is beyond earthly things.
Yeah,
love you guys.
I'm happy to end us off with that prayer. Before I get there, I want to throw something out there to the listening audience. If you are working your steps and you haven't had that spiritual experience, like what Nikki said, stay. Use the academic experience for now until that spiritual experience happens. Because as we read on that in the spiritual experience, many of us had the academic kind, but eventually that, as we put it to the test, will turn into the spiritual experience. That, as we read in the 12th step, having had a spiritual experience, we then go and we carry the message. We give back. We sponsor others. While we do that even when we're just in the academic place, because that's how the spiritual experience happens. Now, I want to go to this prayer that Nikki asked me to launch us off with. It's one that I learned from David G this last week, and it has become a part of my working life in the last week. It's been really cool. So here we go. God, remove the veil so that we can see what is really happening here and not be blinded and intoxicated by stories and fears. Amen. Everybody, get out there, have that veil removed, have that experience, and share it with others. Work it. You are worth it.